1, 2, 3, 4.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where we review the programming the other critics ignore. Stuff made for kids. Find out what to watch for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Deborah.
And I'm Katie.
And I have a 14-year-old and two 11-year-olds.
And I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. Today, we are reviewing Yo Gabba Gabbaland on Apple TV+. We know we reviewed an Apple TV Plus show 2 weeks ago, but we simply could not resist this reboot of a show from our indie music-obsessed pre-parenting lives. So apologies for revisiting the same streaming service 2 reviews in a row. We will correct that going forward, but sorry, not sorry. Brief description of the show. The series dropped its first 10-episode season on August 9th, 2024. It's rated TVG, so it's definitely for the preschool set. The episodes are at that about 24 minutes, a half hour window. We watched the first 2 episodes for our review, titled Land and Make. This series is a reboot of the early 2000s series Yo Gabba Gabba, about 5 human-sized costumed creatures and their friend DJ Lance Rock. It aired on Nickelodeon from 2007 to 2015, and it dealt with your traditional preschool show topics like sharing and not being afraid to try new foods. But it did so with songs heavily influenced by the indie rock scene at the time. So this is when we were like in grad school, right up to like when you had started having kids. But Yo Gabba Gabba was definitely on its last legs by then, right?
Yes, I never watched it. We did have like a board book of Yo Gabba Gabba that we bought at like a library used book sale. And so that was confusing because like we didn't have any context for those characters, but I don't know, like the pictures were funny.
I feel like Yo Gabba Gabba was a show that was really popular at first with like the cool kids because of its use of indie rock, and then by the time you got to that later date, it became, I believe, what the kids today would call kind of cringe. Like it was a little bit embarrassing to be like, oh, I like Yo Gabba Gabba, because it was like you were saying, oh, I'm a total hipster. And no one wanted to be saying that. But anyway, okay. So the early 2000s, we would have known a lot of these bands that were being featured on Yo Gabba Gabba. I looked at a list and it was like, Deborah, Weezer, The Faint, Ladytron of Montreal, The Shins, The Flaming Lips. Like, these are like bangers all
cool
the way
bands.
down.
Yeah.
So it really reminded me of a time when my wardrobe was 70% concert t-shirts.
Oh, you had really good concert t-shirts.
Thank you. I used to be cool. No longer, but... So the reboot, which is actually what we're talking about, not our youth when we were cool, has replaced DJ Lance Rock with Cammy Cam, an actual child and not a random adult inserted into this children's universe. But the 5 core characters from the original are the same: Brobee, Fufa, Muno, Plex, and Tootie. They still have a long list of guest musicians, but now I'm old, so I don't recognize their names. You might, Deborah, because you still listen to music, and I just put together a little list of some of the names. We have The Man and Thundercat, Betty Who, The Linda Lindas, Miyavi, Corey Wong and Antoine Stanley, Kurt Vile, The Drums, Anderson Paak, or Paak perhaps, Paul Williams. That's all I got. Do you know these musicians?
I recognize a couple of their names because in Minneapolis we have like a really good public radio sort of alternative music station, but I don't know these on my own. I just know them from like listening to the current 89.3 in my car.
Does it make you feel tremendously old that you went from like recognizing every band and being like, oh yeah, I had 3 of their albums, to like, who are these people?
I guess, yeah. But I also like don't care about listening to cool new music
Yeah.
as much as I did when I was like 25.
Now we're molding the minds of young humans, and that's way cooler. Mm-hmm. I'm reading the IMDb summary, and it says, reimagining the Yo Gabba Gabbaland world, filled with music, dance, and life lessons, aimed at teaching kids and families through entertainment involving familiar and new characters in an expansive, optimistic setting. It's pretty bland.
I know. I feel like if they just said preschool variety show, that would be a more accurate descriptor, because it's like in the model of Sesame Street.
Very much so.
Or a Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Like there's sort of a plot, but there's a lot of little tiny short videos that have nothing to do with what like Brobee and Tootie are looking for.
Right.
Yeah, can we just call it a variety show? A preschool variety show?
Yes, but for me with reservations, because I feel like the whole term variety show has just been kind of tainted by the absolute trash that has been done with the Muppets lately. So I almost think if you even use that word, it could potentially turn people off.
Right. Did you like Yo Gabba Gabbaland?
We watched 2 episodes, right? Episode 1, no. Episode 2, I think I kind of like fell into the groove a little bit more and was able to ride the wave. So a little? How about you?
I thought overall it was very charming. I liked a lot of it. I thought the characters were weird, though. And the costumes are weird. Like there's the one that looks like a for her pleasure condom.
I think he's supposed to be some kind of cactus based on what we saw in episode 2, because his mother and his sister look like him, but without the raised dots.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that character design is they still have lady-shaped bodies. I'm trying to not use explicit language on this podcast, folks, but for some reason these cactuses had a female silhouette. It was weird.
But I mean, that's like, I don't know. Who is this for? Is this for parents who used to watch Yo Gabba Gabba?
When they were kids.
Yeah, if you were born in the year 2000 and you grew up on Yo Gabba Gabba, you might want to introduce your tiny tots to Yo Gabba Gabbaland.
But you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, no, because it's a preschool show. So preschool kids, let's say 3 in 2007, they'd be almost too young to have preschool age kids now, right?
I mean, I guess it's not impossible, but that seems like a weird group to market to.
Right.
Teen moms.
Right.
I don't know.
And maybe it's just because we're too in it, but I don't know that there was the hole in the market for this kind of preschool programming right now.
Right. So tell me, why isn't this for you, a grown-up? What is hard for you, a grown-up, to connect with?
So in our default doc that we use for every episode, the examples I give are, is it too loud? Is it too choppy? And yes. Mostly with the choppiness, because you said it was a variety show, so there are a lot of short segments. It's not following a full story all the way through. Not even in those 15-minute increments, which is the general story length in a preschool show. And I think just we're at that point now where I do have a catalog of preschool shows that I genuinely love and enjoy. So I'm less tolerant of the stuff that I, as a viewer, don't, even though I realize it could be enjoyable to kids.
This seems to me like a substitute for Sesame Street if you don't have... Now it's on Max, right?
But doesn't it air after the fact?
Later.
Still? Yeah.
On public stations. But I mean, you can have a TV and not have any of those basic stations, right?
But are you going to have Apple TV Plus and not Max? I mean, I know Warner Discovery is not doing well, but...
Maybe if you just bought an iPhone and got the 3 months free or whatever.
That's fair. And we have been saying that Apple TV Plus has been making some really admirable efforts in children's programming. So maybe I just need to get with the future. I don't know. Why do you think this is not for grown-ups?
Well, it's very simplistic, but I there was a lot for me to like here. I thought it was very Daniel Tiger-ish. There were a lot of catchy songs. Like there was a song in the first episode that was like, "Give it a chance. You might just like it. Give it a chance. You might just like it." With like a little rap that I could totally see myself singing to my kids when they were younger about like zucchini or any number of things that kids are reluctant to try. Um, and I also thought it was like kind of good background noise if you're just wanting to turn the TV on for something to listen to because you don't have to pay super close attention and there are all these little like interstitials of like the real kids making silly faces. I thought it was fine.
Yes, I think as an alternative to something like Coco Melon, as something you're going to put on that is co-viewing but not really co-viewing because you have to make dinner or you have to do something, but you want to have your kids occupied without thinking about it. I can see that working well.
Yeah, and I'm always talking about the difference between like amateur content like on YouTube versus professionally produced content. And I think this kind of serves the same purpose as like a Ms. Rachel or some other things that are on YouTube, but it's like very glossy, technicolor. I mean, my objections to the costumes aside, like the set and everything was very nice to look at.
It's interesting that you say that about the costumes because it is very analog in that way. The two things that it really made me think of when watching it were Pee-wee's Playhouse, which was very popular when I was a kid, and like anarchic and impossible to understand for the grown-ups. And I feel like this had a little bit of that sensibility, with the exception of the overt inclusion of bands that the grown-ups would think was cool, bands that the grown-ups would think were cool. But it also made me think of the pre-computer animated, pre-CGI days when like we would have shows with just people wearing foam costumes as the stars for kids.
Like Teletubbies?
No, because I'm too old for Teletubbies. But yes, that did happen with Teletubbies. The one that I thought of was my first exposure to Winnie the Pooh was not through like the animated Winnie the Pooh.
Oh.
It was like this version of Winnie the Pooh with like people walking around in foam Winnie the Pooh costumes. And I was so charmed by it. So I think maybe that gave me a little bit of goodwill towards these truly odd looking characters.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get into the weeds a little bit. Were there for you any cast or character standouts? Was there anyone you particularly loved or hated? Did you miss DJ Lance Rock? Have you seen enough of DJ Lance Rock to miss him?
I have seen a bit of DJ Lance Rock. I'd watched like a handful of Yo Gabba Gabba original episodes. And I always thought the inclusion of a grown adult man as like essentially the MC of these programs was a little intentionally weird in a way that I just didn't get. So I liked the change up to have a kid there. I thought the young woman they have playing Cammy Cam was
so
super
cute.
adorable. They gave her these oversized like blue Harry Potter-esque glasses, and it is just the most adorable character design you can imagine. So I really liked that change. I was thinking about the 5 core characters and whether I had a favorite. And this will probably surprise you not at all, but I had to end up with Plex, who is the robot character.
Oh,
because
of course.
The second episode was about making things and things that, you know, they had dreamed up in their heads that they wanted to create. And every time Cammy Cam cut to what Plex was doing, he was just like feverishly stating, gotta work hard, gotta work hard, gotta work hard, gotta work hard. And I was like, yeah, I relate. I relate, Plex.
I liked Fufa, but Fufa's like the pink teardrop shaped character, but like, isn't it weird that some of the characters, like Brobee's like a squirrel, Plex is a robot, But then, like, what is fufa? Like, why are some of them real simulations of objects and then, or animals, and then some are just like so fantastical? What?
Right, right.
It's like very not cohesive. But like, there's a ton to love. I liked some of the more tertiary supporting characters like Baby Wee Woo,
I
the
thought that was
tree.
the stuff of nightmares.
Oh no, I thought it was really cute. I thought it was super funny.
But I did like, I liked the dance moments because in addition to having these like very sticky Daniel Tiger-esque teaching songs, they also often had a very doable choreography to go along with it that the characters
Right.
would very deliberately do in a way that the audience could see and mimic. And you know how much I like it when I can see all of a choreographed dance.
Right. So, what about the music? Were there any standouts?
Okay, so
So in the first episode there was Anderson Paak as like the closeout band. In the second episode there was he DJ White Shadow?
oh, I didn't even mention. Okay, DJ White Shadow. In the original, Deborah, you're going to like this. In the original Yo Gabba Gabba for Beat of the Day, which is what they had DJ White Shadow on this episode to do, it was Biz Markie, and he would beatbox it. So
Oh
when
my
I saw
God.
DJ White
Why
Shadow,
did
and he
I
was
not know
like,
that?
yeah, it's so great. I bet I can find him on YouTube.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was that he was doing the beat of the day, but he was beatboxing it. So then they had DJ White Shadow on the reboot, and he's like, let me push a button on my drum machine. And I just wanted to throw up my hands and say, what are we even doing here?
Shoot. Yeah, that seems like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that made me really sad to see because obviously Bismarcky isn't with us anymore, but I'm sure there are plenty of very capable, talented beatboxers out there.
Oh. What did you think of the structure of the show?
I already mentioned how much the choppiness just didn't appeal to me. There were some truly weird moments. In the first episode, I feel like this was maybe a fever dream of some sort, but like there was a segment where a little boy was like throwing Cheetos at a giant blob of hair. Did I see that?
Yeah, because I was like, is this sponsored content? Is this product placement?
It was very weird. And like,
There was no Cheetos wrapper, but they were definitely Cheetos.
yeah,
Or cheesy poofs.
it was very strange. So some of the little mini segments looked very familiar as anyone who's watched Sesame Street. Like they had one where there were ice cubes of all the different numbers from 1 to 10 and they just showed them all forming as ice cubes. That was definitely something like what we would see on Sesame Street.
Yeah, that one was something I wanted to point out in terms of the look of the show. I thought that was like super lo-fi and very clever because they did like time lapse backwards of the thing had melted and then coming into its ice form. I thought that was really cool. I could have kept watching that through like 100.
And then occasionally they would have little animated segments with songs. And that just made me miss Meet the Storybots because I feel like they did that
yeah.
better. The songs were catchier and funnier. But again, if you're going for that more earnest tone, which feels weird to say about a show with like such an anarchic design sense, but in general, the tone was very earnest and sincere, which might appeal more to preschoolers, but doesn't have the hook for grown-ups.
Right.
What did you think of the structure?
I liked it. I like a preschool show that doesn't have a plot that I have to pay attention to because they always are so formulaic and predictable. This, for me, felt very chaotic, very unpredictable. I did not know what was coming next, which is the nature of a Sesame Street style show.
That's true. What makes this okay or good for kids?
My kids are too old for this. They would just laugh at it. But for the younger set, I think it's like nice and slow paced. It's simplistic. It's silly. There's nothing to prevent me from recommending it to like a toddler or a preschool kid.
It made me think of the whole frame rate debate. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Where
yeah.
preschool parents were really worried about the frame rate of the shows that their kids were watching and whether they should steer clear of things with fast frame rates. And now that I'm talking about it, I'm blanking on specific examples. But as I was watching this, I was actually thinking, is this fast or slow? You know, because the individual segments themselves were slow, but the fact that you're cutting so quickly between them, is that an argument that like things are too fast? And are people going to say, oh, we're encouraging our children to have shorter attention spans? I really wasn't sure what the general consensus on the value of this would be.
Yeah, that's a good point. It did feel long to me towards the end of each episode, but I think that's simply because it's not made for me and I was watching it by myself.
Yeah.
And kind of like watching the clock, like how long is this episode gonna take?
Exactly. I turned it on and I saw that the episode was a half an hour and I was like, I was really hoping for 15 minutes. But they do wrap up each episode with the musical guest, which feels like a bone to throw to parents, you know, like you made it, here's something you might like.
Right.
So what do you think might make this inappropriate or otherwise bad for kids?
The quibble with the costumes, if somebody's like, what is that? If a child asks, you have to have an answer ready so that you're not like, for her pleasure condom.
Yeah, and I feel like the fact that they expanded the world to Yo Gabba Gabbaland, which has like very distinct biomes for each character. We didn't even get into this.
Oh, yeah.
But it's made very clear in the first episode that which one is the one that looks like a condom?
Muno?
Muno.
Brobee.
No, Brobee is the stripy green one, right?
Okay, Muno.
Let's say Muno. Okay. So it's made very clear in the first episode that Muno lives in the desert biome. So I think it had never occurred to me that he might be a cactus, but it seemed like a fairly natural mental leap to make.
Right.
So I guess I would hope that other parents would make that leap too.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would make this overtly bad for kids. Just maybe a little bit of a tough sit for the grown-ups.
Yeah. What adult movie or show does this compare to?
I whiffed on this. I was going to look something up for like some surrealist comparison, and I just wrote down answers to every other question, but not this one. I'm so sorry. Did you have a good comparison for this?
Well, it sort of reminded me a little bit of, did you watch Busy Phillips' late night show?
I didn't.
It was very short-lived. It got canceled right away, but it was delightful. And now she has a show on like the shopping channel or like QVC. It's like a late night show. I watched a little bit of an episode and her set is very colorful. She's an extremely sparkly person. That's like how she describes herself. And she has like different, you know, like it's like a late night show. Like there's different segments and it's silly and there's no plot and it's just meant to feature like some guests and maybe a little cooking segment or a stand-up comedy or something like that. So that's what it made me think of.
I'm just going to blatantly piggyback on what you just said, because even though I've not seen this Busy Phillips show, I can kind of see it aligning with like early Conan O'Brien. You remember those late night days where you would be like, what am I even watching? What is this? Is this even funny? Oh, I guess it must be. Okay.
Did you cast the gritty HBO reboot?
So because I didn't know any of the musical guests, I was like, you know what? Sometimes I just like to put spoonfuls of refined sugar on my Lucky Charms. That's not true, but it's a metaphor I'm going for, okay?
Yeah.
So what if instead of having like instead of having like an indie pop band guest, we just had Broadway superstars?
Ooh. I like that.
What if we had Audra McDonald and we went back in time and we had Jerry Orbach and we could throw in an Alan Cumming, which, oh my gosh, would Alan Cumming love this? Yes, he definitely would. Maybe even an Idina Menzel. I think that would be really fun. And I would make an exception and watch it again to see that. How about
Renee,
you?
Elise, Goldsberry.
Yes.
I just went to see a concert, just like a free in the park concert by my house, and there was this local musician playing, like she's from Seattle, very like folk guitar singer-songwriter vibe, and she had the silliest song that was called P is for Placenta, and it was like an ode to the placenta, which is a crazy, extraordinary, women's bodies just grow an extra organ when they're pregnant. So I would like to have her write the soundtrack because it was like very clever and educational, but felt like a little bit subversive because it's not the subject of a ordinary song. And then there's like a new show with Vince Vaughn on right now on Apple TV Plus.
Bad Monkey, right?
Yeah. And then there's like a movie with Matt Damon. So I would cast like some of these aging movie stars from our younger days and make them wear those silly costumes, but talk in their real voices. So then you just hear like Vince Vaughn coming out of like the cactus penis.
Yes, Vince Vaughn would be an excellent Muno. And then Matt Damon would definitely be Brobee, the green stripy one, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm liking this.
Was it better when we were kids?
We had weird stuff too. I mean, I brought up Pee-wee's Playhouse. That was plenty weird.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the inclusion of actual cool music in this one. So I guess maybe no in this sense. What do you think?
I don't think we need to improve upon Sesame Street. I feel like that is the platonic ideal for young kids shows. And maybe because that's like mainly what I remember watching when I was really young.
No, because
so maybe it's just pure nostalgia.
But you've definitely watched plenty of it as a parent with your kids. So I don't think it's purely that. I want to go on record saying I 100% agree with you with that. Sesame Street is the ideal, and this cannot be looked at as a replacement for that. In no way.
Would you ever watch this alone voluntarily?
I mean, until those Broadway stars come on, no. How about you?
I want to say no, but maybe I should be watching to expand my music collection. Is this how an old lady discovers cool new bands, is by watching Yo Gabba Gabbaland?
Yeah, I think maybe.
Oh.
What do you think for ratings from 1 to 5 stars?
4? Generous?
Yeah, I gave it a 3. I guess I'm getting meaner in my old age. What do you think? See it or skip it?
I would say if you have really little kids and you have Apple TV Plus, definitely see it. I wouldn't run out and get Apple TV Plus for this show, though.
But I might run out and get Apple TV Plus for other shows. And then I would say definitely see it because it's so weird and so distinctive that I think you're going to want to talk about it afterwards. Yeah. Thank you for listening to our review of Yo Gabba Gabbaland. If you enjoyed our show today, please recommend the show to one friend you think would enjoy it too. We love growing our community of parents for sanity and screen time. After this episode, we'll be taking our fall break for the start of the school year, but we will be back with new episodes in October, starting, drumroll please, with a celebration of our 200th episode. Until then, find almost 200 archived episodes at our website, myscreentime2.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV we watch with our kids because we have to, and sometimes because we like to. Bye!
Bye!
Screen time,